Haunt of Jackals by I.O. Adler. Old Chrome Book 3, Chapter 1. Shadows wended their way across the lot between plastic-wrapped pallets of construction material. The long arms of a building printer lay partially assembled near the gate leading to the road. A half-moon brooded behind the high clouds and cast an insufficient glow through the skeletal beams of steel standing on the concrete slabs. Dark figures scurried past the raised foundation towards the site's generator and an excavator hunched on its tracks. Too dark to see faces. But Miles Kim had 3 targets. His insight module painted a red square center mass on all of them, losing one momentarily when the line of sight became interrupted. But the intruders stuck close enough together, no longer running, moving casually now as if out for a late stroll, instead of trespassing on a secure building site in the middle of the night. Maybe that's who they were. Drunks on the way home from nearby Jumbo's trunk bar, kids taking a shortcut, or vagrants too lazy to make the Church of the Sand shelter for anyone in need of a cot. Miles popped on his flashlight. The brilliant white beam caught the trio in its broad cone. 3 men dressed in dark clothes, one carrying a bolt cutter and a duffel bag, the other 2 with jerry cans of sloshing liquid. "This is where you turn around and leave," he said. The 3 only hesitated for a moment before spreading out. Miles kept the beam moving between them, mentally assigned each target square a number. "Fence and the gate you cut through are back behind you." "Get that light out of my face," number 1 said. Number 2 flashed Miles with a headlamp. "Go back to your trailer, old-timer." 3 spoke with a stutter. "He's a metalhead." Miles sighed. "Last chance. This is private property. Turn around now, or the militia gets summoned." Number 1 had the bolt cutters. "Maybe we clip the scrap off him and throw him into the recycler." 2 set his jerry can down. "No, Pero. Some of that junk's worth a lot of credits intact, if you know how to cut." "We should go," 3 said. Number 1 took a step forward, the bolt cutter swinging. "Thought you were good with maths." "He's an old man, and the creaky bot isn't even armed." Miles flexed his metal right hand. "What this creaky old bot does have is an Amber Drive series arm and hand mod. You heard of Amber Drive? Big back in the day, when Meridian wanted its repaired soldiers to have something for close-quarter combat. Nothing as fancy as slicers or finger blades, but who needs those when you can snap a neck or crush a windpipe? You punch an opponent just right, you can tear out their guts. Made 'em illegal after the war. The fancy refined mods you see these days don't hold a candle to the Amber Drives. You know the worst part? Sometimes when you grip something, the hand squeezes and can't be made to let go, even after the operator's death." He wriggled his fingers. The 3 trespassers stared, their mouths open. "Correction," his insight module piped up inside his head. "Polite as you please. Your arm is a Stoner Bionics 14, your shoulder is generic Meridian open source design, and your hand is model—" "Shut up, Insight," he murmured. He eyed all 3 men before setting his flashlight onto the dirt and straightening up. He flexed his neck and rolled his head and ignored the soft pops from his back. "Let's get out of here," 3 said. Number 2 led the way, and the 3 were running by the time they made the gate, where a portion of the fence had been cut and peeled aside. Once there, they had trouble making it through the gap, as 3 became caught by a wire. He had to drop his jerry cans and lost his sweatshirt. As his companions pulled him to the opposite side, they ran off into the night. Miles watched them leave. A dog was on the nearby sidewalk and barking, first at the 3 intruders, then at Miles. He examined the fence. "Something for the report." He crossed the yard to retrieve his flashlight and to collect the dropped cans. The reek of gasoline lingered. A quick survey, and he could see no damage had been done to anything on the site. A snuffling came from behind him. The dog had snuck in through the fence and was standing behind him. Its amber eyes glowed. "Chew! Go home!" The dappled hound ducked, as if it were about to bolt. But it held its ground. He stomped his foot. The animal shied back, followed him when he headed for the trailer. The white shoebox structure served as the four-person and architect's headquarters by day and the guard shack by night. Tristan sat inside, leaning back on a swivel chair, his security outfit shirt unbuttoned and sleeves rolled up, showing both tattoo-covered arms. His feet were propped on the desk. Miles had saved him a few weeks before, a near drowning in a greenhouse fish pond. He had also served as Miles's driver, had informed on Miles to a corrupt cop, and had agreed to Miles' offer of a security job when the boss requested an additional warm body, a complex relationship. A wall screen had a local news report, but the volume was muted. Something about an explosion or impact in River City, which was being blamed on the caretakers. A headline blinked. Kinetic strike kills 200. Real or fake news? Hard to know. He lived in Seraph now. River City and her Meridian Corporation overlords were the past. Another monitor displayed a hazy image of the front gate in the far corner of the property. Neither had caught the three trespassers cutting their way in. Miles would have missed them if he hadn't been on his way to relieve himself after one too many cups of tea. The dog whined from outside the door. Miles examined his cup. The remaining tea had grown cold. He dumped it and filled it with water from the sink before setting it outside. The dog eyed the offering warily before slinking forward and lapping it up. Tristan yawned and flashed his yellow teeth. Did I miss anything? Just the local wildlife. Anything new on the incident? Not at this hour. They're just looping the earlier report. I guess they're still up there, aren't they? The caretakers? Who knows? It's all speculation for now. Tristan scratched absent-mindedly. Why can't they just leave us alone and we leave them alone? Starting up the violence again, and for what? Or maybe they're going after Meridian and River City, and they'll leave Seraph out of it. Last time I checked, the caretakers weren't fond of anyone. Yeah, you're right. I'm tired. 4 more hours and we go home. Miles turned off the news. Watching the time doesn't make it go faster. It lets me know how much more sleep I can get, because once I go home, Yasmin hands off the twins. Maybe you should have thought of that before accepting this job. I thought it would be quieter. You slamming the door, the tea kettle, your device vibrating, and now that whining. Is that a dog out there? Miles ignored the question as he grabbed for the device he had left on one of the other desks. 2 missed calls from Marshal Barma. He hadn't heard from him for weeks, since the matter with the fishes had been laid to rest. Why was he calling at this hour? Barma picked up on the first ring. Kim, where are you? The security guard gig Santabuter set me up with. What's up? I've got a situation and I wanted your input. Can it wait until the end of my shift? No. There's been a shooting and I have no idea where to start with this. I'm sending you the location. Get here quick. Chapter 2. Miles drove Tristan's 3-wheeler through the dark streets, past the cargo containers, which made up the bulk of the shantytown on the west side of Seraph. In sight, labeled the neighborhood Bright Blocks, as if the cheery name could obscure the fact that a good portion of the district's residents lived in squalor. The weak headlights barely illuminated the uneven road. He navigated down the ever-narrowing lanes until crossing a flood protection berm. The cargo containers gave way to the Seraph dump, a sprawling landfill with several scrapyards operated amid a trash-strewn stretch of wasteland. While fences marked several properties, most of the wide space was nothing more than competing heaps of refuse. Hulks of abandoned vehicles lined the side of the road. Drums with unknown contents lay partially buried. Dark stretches of dirt glistened as brown liquids congealed on the ground. Even the most desperate among Seraph's residents avoided living here. Warning signs hung askew on posts and the remnants of rusty galvanized steel barriers. Keep out. Danger. Hazardous material. An acrid stench stung Miles' nose. Tristan's wagon had no side windows or doors. Miles slowed to a crawl and checked his device. Took a turn past a tall mountain of broken furniture and printed goods. Stacks of cargo crates large enough to house small vehicles lined the way. The ground grew muddy. Miles didn't dare drive any faster, lest the vehicle get bogged down. The location Marshal Barma had pinged was close. What could possibly be out here? The rational question yielded to the facts of Miles' own experience as a cop. Bad things happened in remote locations. A subcompact electric vehicle stood parked by a collection of massive containers. The containers stood open and dark. Miles parked a few paces away and left the headlights shining as he killed the engine and got out. Barma's imposing form appeared at the threshold of the largest steel box. "Turn off those lights." Miles did. The marshal switched on a flashlight to illuminate the ground. "Took your time coming. Early morning traffic. Please don't tell me you called me here to remind me I don't know my way around town. Don't you have a computer in that robot head? This way. And mind your step, the floor gets sticky." The cargo container's interior was damp and stuffy. Cardboard and carpet remnants lay stacked on the floor, congealed and rotting. Their feet squished as they walked to the back of the container. A dangling curtain marked a doorway cut in the steel. A faint glow emanated from the space on the other side. Barma shoved the curtain back and stepped through. "Watch the edges, it's sharp." A second container lay on the opposite side, bare metal floors and no rust. A single bulb dangled from a wire in the center of the space. A table sat beneath it, and sprawled around the table next to knocked-over chairs lay 3 bodies. Miles let out a sharp exhale. "You brought me here for this? Call it what you will, I want a second opinion, and don't put your foot in anything important." "I know the drill." Miles crouched and surveyed the scene. 3 firearms lay scattered nearby. 2 burners and a sawed-off shotgun so short it might as well be a pistol. 1 burner was chrome, a model with 4 to 6 shots, personal defense, and not much use otherwise. The second burner was something law enforcement might carry, capable of augmentation uplink. A 12-shot battery, high power for a laser pistol. But the battery light was winking red. The shooter had emptied it. All the weapons were close enough to have been dropped by the 3 victims. There were personal devices on the floor as well, along with blood from one of the fallen. "Check for vitals?" Miles asked. "I assume you did, since there's no ambulance here." "They're all gone." Miles shifted closer and shined his own flashlight. All 3 men were well dressed, relatively neat, groomed, and clean. At least, until the event which marked their demise. The first body, the closest, was a middle-aged white male, patterned silk charcoal suit, a wide necktie with mauve and silver horizontal stripes, and a matching pocket square. Buffed fingernails and cleanly shaven. He had been struck by the shotgun in the chest. The second man lay on his side, his face partially concealed. Brown skin, older, thin, balding, with long white sideburns. His slender, almost skeletal fingers still touched the chrome pocket burner. He wore rings on his hands, gold, and most were studded with gems. Tidy laser holes marked his left arm, throat, and cheek. Miles had to maneuver to examine the third man. The largest of the 3, he had fallen backward with his arms out. His yellow coat lay open, revealing his ample stomach and a bright starched white shirt marked with a tiny burner wound over his heart. His sun-bleached blonde hair was thin and gelled and looked like a raised palm fixed to the back of his head. A pair of AR glasses sat askew on his face, but Miles didn't see any visible augmentations that would link with the device. "All wounds are front-facing," Miles said. "Appears that they shot each other." "Yup, and?" Everyone was seated and getting along well enough. None of them looked like they live anywhere near here. The one with the glasses might have been recording what went down. I'd check all their devices. Doubt they were meeting for a card game in this dump. Something shady, no doubt. The marshal grunted. "No doubt. That's all Police 101. I didn't call you out here for that." "All right, I'll bite. Who are they?" "You really haven't been around here long." Barma used his light to illuminate the big guy in the yellow coat. "Bing Patton. He's the owner of the Yellow Tiger's militia, or at least the closest thing. He's the largest stakeholder and president of their board of directors." The thin man was next. "Shahid Kar." If you know the Seraph underworld, you know him. He has fingers in every pot. Information broker, he knows where all the closets are and put some skeletons in there himself. He has leverage on so many people, he could move Seraph 100 clicks in any direction, if he decided it would make him a profit. Finally, Barma directed the flashlight to the man in the silk suit. And that's Xander Trowbridge, old money. Knew the elder fishes when Seraph was little more than a big camp next to the old springs. Water baron, owns more land than anyone should, whether illegally or by rule of law. Fancies himself the patron saint of Earth's post-Meridian expansion, and figures every man, woman, and child owes him obeisance. Rarefied crowd, and here they are. Barma took off his hat and sighed. Yeah, right outside city limits, on my turf. And you called me. To say this one is complicated is like saying the platinum rock which got dropped in the desert a couple of 100 years ago shook the ground a little. I'm looking at the richest man in Seraph dead next to one of its biggest criminals, alongside the guy who calls the shots of the largest militia. This is going to cause a few ripples. And right now, you're the only one I trust enough to eyeball this thing. Why me? You have an office of trained marshals. Yeah, the others are out. Plus, there isn't one of them who isn't at least a little tainted. Miles straightened and ignored the complaints from his popping knees. It happens. But it's the job, and what you have to work with. What about the other agencies? Yellow Tiger and Red District militias. And then there's Sheriff Vaca's office, but she just boomerangs everything that takes actual work over to the militias. From what I've seen, the militias handle calls outside the city when asked. Barma gave him an appraising look. Learned that from Captain Sin. I heard you two were dating. 3 evenings out, watching my son play what he calls music isn't dating. Whatever. My office has a specific mandate. Fugitives, court security, protect the mayor and city officials, and first response to major crimes outside of Seraph, from Devil's Bridge and points west and south out to 250 clicks. This one's a squeaker, but you're right. It's ours. Wishing it otherwise won't make it go away. I'm asking you for help. I already have a job. As if on cue, Miles' device vibrated. A text from Tristan. Dog keeps whining. ETA on your return? Miles swiped close the notification. Speaking of which, I need to get back. Quit. I can put you on the payroll as a deputized consultant. No thanks. I did the cop thing for more years than I care to admit. The security gig pays the rent. Barma's jaw tightened and he nodded, set his hat on his head and started texting. Calling my forensic team out. Miles studied the walls. Only a couple of burner holes in the steel, not many misses. Laser pistols rarely penetrated a body. He walked carefully to the far end of the container, where the heavy doors stood closed. Muddy footprints abounded, which he avoided. He pushed a door open. A small cul-de-sac lay at the end of an alley, lined with more of the shipping crates. 2 vehicles were parked in the dirt, one a polished black sedan, and the other a Yellow Tiger Desert Runner. This is where they parked, Miles announced. Barma didn't look up from his screen. Saw it when I first arrived and checked for any survivors. Then you probably counted 2 vehicles here. Were any of the victims' friends? I'd guess they hated each other. This wasn't a social event. Yeah, that means either 2 of them carpooled or 1 vehicle is missing. Chapter 3. Miles followed Barma to the end of the muddy alley. They studied the ground together. From a cursory examination, 3 vehicles had recently entered, 1 had left. Maybe one of them got dropped off, Miles said. These 3 met here without bodyguards or assistants. None of them would have sat down with the others if anyone was breaking the rules. And I don't see them going for a nightcap or early breakfast after their meetup. So someone left. Could have been before the balloon went up. Who do the 2 cars belong to? Barma went back to the 2 vehicles. Desert Runner is Bing Pattons. Fancies himself a lawman rather than a company manager. Shotgun fell out of his hands. Drives his car around town on his own little patrols. It would be cute if he wasn't such a jackass. Miles walked around the black sedan. Locked. The flashlight revealed a plush interior, with leather and silver trim and wood paneling on the dashboard. Inside identified the model. Not a common make, custom print job, Meridian manufacturer that went out of business over 20 years ago. Xander Trowbridge's usually has a driver and a string of secretaries at his side. Not tonight. And if he drove alone, so did everyone else. Maybe someone didn't follow the rules, or the third car got stolen. Third body is Shahid Car's? What did he drive? Don't know. I've got a scan of the wheel marks. Hard to believe someone as paranoid as him left his car unlocked. Bad people do dumb things. Not Shahid. He showed up here, didn't he? Barma's device vibrated, and he took the call. I'm at the scene right now. Pause. I haven't requested any additional units yet. Another pause. No, don't send them. We have a bad connection? I'm not releasing this scene to Red District or anyone else until my people finish their job. The person on the other end of the line was loud enough for Miles to hear a woman's voice. She sounded firm and increasingly angry. I'll call this in when I'm ready. Don't? Barma looked as if he wanted to throw his phone. What was that? Miles asked. Trouble. Sheriff's department heard about this somehow and they are sending their own investigators from the Red District militia. And you don't play nice with them? Under normal circumstances, we get along swimmingly. But that was Sheriff Vaca herself on the line, and she's taken a personal interest. Which means the word is getting out about what happened here, and it's going to get nasty. Another text from Tristan. Where are you? Dog won't leave. Shift's up in an hour, and I need my car. He put the phone away. Who called you in the first place? Yellow Tiger's dispatch program flagged Patton's runner outside of city limits and pinged my office. It's a nuisance call meant to dot the I's and cross the T's on our respective mandates. I was up and out. I called Bing. After receiving no reply, I checked it out. That'll teach you to go to bed at a reasonable hour. Not all of us can just plug in and recharge our batteries at the drop of a hat. Look, I have minutes before this place will be crawling with people I can't trust. Give me a day and help me run whatever leads we can. I'll make it worth your time. Once the militia shows up, I'll be up to my ears in phone calls and messages from the mayor on down and won't be able to get anything done. No one here knows you. You can ask the right questions and get things rolling by the time I have to loop any of my own people in. It was exactly what Miles didn't want. To be seen, noticed, have his profile checked and investigated. The mystery woman from the train had helped wipe his presence clean from any other bounty hunters from Meridian who might pick up his scent. What's involved? Miles asked. I can give you a few hours, help with the scene, but beyond that I can't get involved. I need to file a personnel form, adding you as a provisional deputy, Barma said. We sometimes do that for folks we bring on board during operations requiring local help, when out in the boonies. Sometimes we need to hire a tracker or impromptu backup. And we do this off the books? Not with this. When the two militias hear about this, and the sheriff sends her own investigators, that's a lot of Seraph cops who are going to be throwing their weight around. If you're here, it's because you're official. Can't, won't. He had a job to return to. Barma waited on Miles, expression calm, but eyes hopeful. I'll take your last look around, Miles said. But then I have to leave. Chapter 4. With spotlights blazing, a Red District armored car with oversized balloon tires drove down the alley. Steel scraped as it rubbed along one row of cargo containers. It stopped right behind the Marshal Service's lab tech buggy where his forensic man, dressed head to toe in a white plastic suit with goggles, was busy unloading equipment. The bumper of the armored car was emblazoned with red chevrons and threatened to shear the roof off the smaller vehicle. The militia driver cut loose with a blast of a horn. Get that car out of our way, as if there was any more room in the cul-de-sac. A militia trooper dropped to the dirt, and he and the forensic technician began arguing. The floodlights and red and white flashers were blinding. Miles was crouched, getting a scan of the tire tracks of the victims' vehicles. He squinted as he gazed at the new arrivals. They always this subtle? Barma kept his back to the lights. True to his prediction, Barma had been answering a nonstop flurry of text messages. It'll only get worse. Best make whatever observations you can before it gets crowded and you're asked to leave. I've seen what I need to. No other vehicles drove up here recently. Anything on Shaid's cars. I've got Glenda on it back in the office. Just a sec. More cops emerged from the armored car. A blonde woman in a blue windbreaker was the first to approach from the group. A visible implant wrapped around her left ear and adhered to her cheek and jawline. Her tone was formal. Marshal Barma, thanks for securing the scene. Please forward all your data to me now. My tech hasn't even gotten started. I'll call you when I can release this location. That won't be necessary. We're here now. Red District techs will handle processing and collect the bodies. Miles brushed mud from his knees. That's kinda quick. The marshal's tech hasn't even stepped foot inside. She gave him a quick once-over. What museum did you crawl from? Military surplus. Seraph's civil mandate places the marshal's office in charge of an investigation outside of city limits. Neither the Yellow Tigers nor the Red District militia are permitted to exercise their enforcement authority without approval by the sheriff's office or the marshals. Thanks, Insight. Burma mouthed, shut up. The cop in the windbreaker was grinning now. I'm not sure who this is, Marshal Barma, but as you're escorting him away from this crime scene, please inform him that by my order, the Red District militia has assumed jurisdictional oversight and will handle this. And who are you? Miles asked. The woman ignored the question as she waved the Red District cops forward. Miles held out a hand to stop the procession. You realize your people are trampling all over the tire tracks leading to a crime scene. The woman's grin vanished. She pivoted to face Miles. There was something snake-like in her movements, a serpent about to strike. Marshal, get your people out of here now. The marshal's office lab tech watched in obvious dismay. Boss? Pack it up, Barma said. He turned Miles towards the mouth of the alley. You can get to your car this way. Wait a minute. What happened back there? Who is she? She, my friend, is Sheriff Rose Vaca. Insight had missed that. His Seraph net connection was suddenly too spotty to confirm the fact, but he didn't doubt what Barma told him. Just like that, you get removed? It's an open investigation. We just lost the crime scene. You gave me an hour and I appreciate it, but it's not your concern anymore. Are there people any good? Depends. But what does it matter? You have your job to get back to. Someone drove away from this place, Barma, and the red banners just rolled over the wheel marks. We had people like your Sheriff Vaca up the chain of command back in River City. Bad things happen when cops start interfering like that. She can't take the case away from me, Barma said. But she can bully you from actually doing your job and solving it. Something like that. Miles stopped them at the mouth of the alley. How much? How much what? How much does working for the Marshal Department pay if I give you a day, like you asked? Barma took out his device and pulled up a screen he had prepared. There's the particulars. All right, I'll help. But promise me once we're done, you delete everything you have on me. What about your other job? It'll keep. Besides, my watchman shift is almost over and suddenly I'm not so tired. Barma nodded and tapped his screen before offering it to Miles. Press there with your thumb, Kim. Welcome to the Marshal's Service. Chapter 5. Tristan was bouncing on his knees and shivering when Miles pulled up to the construction site's front gate. What took you so long? The sun was rising. The first of the workers were gathering in the main lot, hard hats on, breath visible. Most gripped steaming cups of tea in their hands. The dog was nearby, sniffing about the cut section of gate. Miles set the brake and got out of the wagon. Marshal Barma had some consultation work. At 3 a.m? You want bank hours. Work at a bank. Tristan reached a hand over. Whatever. I logged us out. I have your credit chip for the night. Now give me my keys. I need to get home. Miles dropped them in his palm. Barma has me running down some loose ends today. I could use a driver. I can't. Yasmin needs me back now. You know that. It couldn't hurt to ask. Just get me to my hotel. The dog jumped in the back bed of the wagon. Hey! Tristan shouted. Get out! Go! Scram! The dog barked and wasn't going anywhere. It's going to get fleas in my tuk-tuk. Miles appraised the dog. At this point, it will only add to your car's character. Leave him be. I'll get him out once we make it to the hotel. The dog jumped out once Miles stepped onto the curb. Tristan didn't wave as he sped off. The dog shrank back when Miles crouched and offered a hand, but hurried to follow once Miles approached the hotel doors. The clerk behind the plastic window glanced up from whatever serial he was watching on his tablet. No animals, no exceptions. He's not mine. Then shut the door so it doesn't get in. Miles reached for the door to hurry it closed. Sorry, bud. With the morning light outside, the dog's face was well illuminated. Its pink mouth had one corner which appeared scarred, as if it was sneering. The animal whimpered as the door thudded closed, and a burst of hot breath fogged the glass. How much extra for you to let me take him in? Miles asked. What, and have it barking and upsetting all the other tenants? Hate for anyone to spoil the tranquil ambience, right? Rent's due tomorrow. You said you get paid today. Miles transferred the credits for the next week's stay to the waiting scanner at the front desk. There wasn't much left. He would need to hire a ride if he didn't want to begin his investigation on foot. His stomach reminded him he also needed breakfast. He took the stairs and went up to his room. The clamor from his neighbors was in full swing. Loud music and cereals, thumps, footsteps, slammed doors, and voices through paper-thin walls. He needed a change of clothes, but realized his extra shirt and sole change of underwear were still damp, drying near the bathroom sink. The dog barked from outside. Miles glanced down through the window and saw it standing at the corner, glancing nervously about and whining. In River City, they never had dogs or any other pets. Dylan had wanted one for years, but So-Yun had been adamant and worried an animal would cause allergies. In reviewing the events at the murder scene, he wondered what he had been thinking in agreeing to help Barma. Was it the crime itself, the challenge, the thought someone needed his expertise, or was it the sheriff throwing her authority around? What business did he have stepping into a new city and its problems, with its own rules which he couldn't begin to understand? He'd help run down the missing witness's vehicle and bow out. His nagging stomach reminded him that the extra credits Barma threw his way would be welcome. He had enough for breakfast, maybe lunch, but if he wanted to get anywhere, he'd need to keep enough to hire a cab. He washed his face and hands and ignored the reflection staring at him before pulling his hat back on. Once outside, the dog slinked over and followed him to the nearby drugstore, where a selection of vending machines waited. A moment later, he had a mint cereal bar and a scalding cup of tea-colored water. The dog stared with unvarnished cupidity. A string of drool dangled from its lips. Miles broke off a quarter of his bar, and the animal swallowed it in a single gulp. Chew your food, trooper, Miles said. We can't have you choking to death in the mess. It's the enemy's job to kill you. Your job is to make it harder for him. His phone buzzed. Message from Barma. Glenda sent me this. Let me know if it helps. He ate as he read. Surprisingly moist bar, nutty, too sweet. At least the grumblies subsided. The tea had cooled some but was still too hot. The first attachment was a spec sheet on a style of four-wheel roadster. It matched the wheelbase measurement of the tire tracks from the crime scene. A second attachment held a map of Seraph. Some 30 virtual pins adorned the map, all addresses or locations in town where a roadster had been spotted by traffic patrols. The image had a yellow tiger watermark. Miles could only speculate if the militia was always so sharing with the marshal. Most of the locations were downtown, but half were spread around the city. Too many districts had no marks, which meant either that no roadsters of that make had passed near a camera, or that street and patrol surveillance were lacking. A list of owners would have been better, but Miles guessed this was something a city official like the sheriff would have, and either Barma didn't have access or didn't want to ask. Incomplete information. The locations were a long shot. All of this would be toe work, handled by a few mobile units who could eyeball each pin as quickly as possible. Vehicles moved around. But a lead was a lead, and he had thumbed his agreement to help. With Tristan off playing father for the day, Miles needed to secure a ride. A moment on SeraphNet was a sobering realization that taxis were expensive. Dylan picked up on the second ring. "Hey Dad, what's up? I know you're probably getting ready for work. I need a lift." "Not a good day for that. I'm already late. I thought I told you I have a show we're working on with the kids. I have to be down at the theater in... Look, I have to go... Just a sec." At first, Miles thought Dylan had hung up. A muffled conversation followed on the other end. Dylan and his girlfriend Zoe. His son sounded a bit upset. Dylan returned. "Dad, you at your hotel?" "I'm just outside." "All right, look, I can't get you. But Zoe has wanted to meet you. She said she'll be there in 20 minutes. As Miles waited, he checked his reflection in the polished surface of one of the vending machines. His hair felt greasy, but at least his face was free of grime. Not much helping the rest of it at this point. Zoe pulled up moments later in a two-door electric Super Mini. Miles recognized her from a picture Dylan had shared, as she had been absent from Dylan's performances, always working according to Dylan. She had a head full of locks tucked into a scrunchie, which kept it all up and off her neck and out of her face. She rolled down the windows, then leaned against the wheel to look at Miles. "You must be Dylan's father." "I'm Zoe." "Miles," he said as he climbed in. The dog, which had been nearby sniffing the vending machines, had vanished. "Thanks for coming. I hope this isn't an inconvenience." "I just dropped Dylan off. Sorry, he's really stressed about his kid's show. The school is making it into a bigger production than he hoped. Fundraiser, he told me." "Yeah, good cause. Some of the schools where the kids go are volunteering their best students. He's got 30 kids to corral, songs, a couple of dance numbers. There's other classes doing stuff too, but he kept saying yes." Story of my life. "Look, I appreciate this. I just need to get downtown. I have a job." She put the car in gear. "Oh? What are you working on? I heard you had a night security gig." "I do, but I agreed to help the marshal out with something that came up last night." "The marshal? This have to do with the train incident?" "No, there was a murder." Chapter 6. An interrogation. That's what it was. Not a chat, not a conversation, but an interrogation, and Miles had been grilled by the best of them. Meridian defense attorneys, judges, and victim rights advocates could take a lesson from Zoe Franklin. As the questions flew, she drove him to 12 of the locations where a matching roadster had been sighted by the Seraph traffic scanners. Only 3 still had cars parked. With all 3, Miles got out and made a cursory examination. Most vehicles in town had a stenciled tag number on the corner of the bumper. A city use permit which no doubt paid for Seraph infrastructure. He texted each car's number to Barma. A moment later, he was looking at a profile of the owner. Name, address, picture. Barma could keep track of these and follow up. Just because a car was at a murder scene didn't mean it had been the registered owner who had driven it, but it would be a direction to go. In this case, Barbara Zwick was an elderly woman who owned a nearby ceramic studio, low on the list of suspects, and the roadster was in plain sight. The previous 2 were also unlikely candidates: a nurse at Wood Creek Hospital who worked day shift postnatal care, and a father of 4 who ran a foster care home with his partner. Once he got back into Zoe's car, the inquisition resumed. "Where did you finally decide to leave River City?" Zoe asked. "And tell me about Dylan's mom." Followed by, "I heard you got to meet Beatrix Fish. Is she as weird as everyone says?" Finally, she inquired, "What brought you to Seraph in the first place?" A simple question with a simple answer, which would have avoided telling her anything about his original intention to sell off his cybernetics to a black market surgeon and forward the proceeds to Dylan. But she had sniffed out something, perhaps his tiniest hesitation before his answer. "This is where my son lives." She leaned on the steering wheel, her eyes fixed on him. "It took you 2 years to come visit. No call, no message, and you were just going to show up? Thought if I made contact first, he'd tell me not to come. Or I'd change my mind." "So you jumped on the fastest train to Seraph? That's commitment. Not cheap either. Did you come into a windfall?" "Pull around there." The next car spotted was in the lot behind the restaurant. She did as he requested, driving up toward several cars parked in a dirt lot. No roadster. Miles knew the list might be nothing but busy work. The real investigation was with the 3 bodies out beyond Bright Blocks where the fallen victims had met. Something in the diverse lives of a militia company executive, a water baron, and an underworld data broker brought them together in the small hours, without staff or bodyguards. And while someone had driven off, that person no doubt had their vehicles stashed away, where no traffic camera could spot it. Still, the low-level grunt work occasionally bore fruit, and it nagged at him that Sheriff Vaca and the Red Banner militia had so carelessly obliterated the tire tracks. What else would they miss in their haste to make the crime scene go away? Above his pay grade. He could only hope Marshal Barma would ask the right questions. "No car here, Miles," Zoe said. "So how much pension does a retired Meridian cop pull in anyway?" "Kind of a personal question. I'm trying to learn the lay of the land with Dylan. He doesn't share much, and what he does tell me doesn't come easy. It's like pulling teeth. Why is my financial situation so interesting? You pay for an expensive train ticket rather than the long loop on a cheap bus, but then you stay in a Galena Road dive. And no offense, but you look like you haven't changed clothes in a few days. Did you lose your luggage?" He had brought none. He hadn't been planning on living more than a few hours after his arrival in Seraph. The train ride? Prior to the ambush, it would have brought him to his destination the quickest, with the least chance of him being caught by anyone from Meridian who might be chasing him. After all, his implants weren't exactly his. He gave her his winningest smile. "Maybe we would know each other better if you weren't skipping out on the evenings of Dylan's performances." Her cheerful expression didn't waver. "I know. It's terrible. But I've hit a busy patch with work. I'm trying to finish my thesis, and night is the only time when everyone is out of the office and greenhouses, so I can think clearly and get some dictation done. I thought Dylan said you were a farmer." "Ha! It's what I told him when we first met. I'm a botanist. Right now I'm trying to revive some lost species of hops in my company's greenhouse. It's not super interesting, so I won't bore you. Well, this has been a big help. You can drop me off here, I can walk to the rest of my stops." "You kidding me? It's hot out. And I need the break. Maybe I can take you to lunch before we part ways. But then how will you get around?" Miles had considered the possibilities. Even a pedal bike was too expensive. And until the credits started rolling in, he couldn't afford to lose his room, and he wanted to stretch out his meal budget. "I'll manage. I have another stopover by. Pull over." Zoe had already left the lot. She swerved and found a place to park on the street. A row of parking spaces lined the far side of the lot, next to a neighboring building. A black roadster sat in one spot. "What do you see?" Zoe asked. "One of the vehicles I'm looking for. It must not have been there for the last traffic patrol update. Want me to get out and get the number for you?" "Stay here." Miles took a walk. He didn't have to get close for the number, but something about the car stood out. There was other foot traffic and he didn't want to linger, so he strolled past to the front of the building. A hair salon, a burrito shop, and a law office shared the property. Miles glanced at the directory information for the law office. Svetlana Petrov Associates. No hours, no scan code for a phone number. The reflective glass didn't allow Miles to see inside, and above the door was a tiny camera. Miles kept moving, crossing the street, and making his way back to Zoe. She had a lecture playing, German language. Insight couldn't keep up, as the play speed was double. She paused it. Sorry, a little homework. It's your car. Any clues? Possibly. Car parked at a law office. Might not be connected. But there's something about this roadster. I notice most cars around here have a nice layer of dust on them. Including mine. Sticks to everything, and water's expensive. Yeah, that one's been washed, probably this morning. Crime scene was muddy. He sent the car's number to Barma. Again a fast answer. Perhaps the marshal had Miles tied into the office's computer. On his screen he saw a boyish face, a man in his early 20s. Neutral expression, the kind you see on a license. Bristly black hair, rust-colored eyes. Lucian Carr. Address was near downtown. No other information. Zoe was reading over his arm. Carr family? Was one of them involved? Miles studied Lucian's face on the screen. Like so many mugshots, there was no knowing what might lurk behind those gentle eyes and his youthful face. It's too much of a coincidence. Yes, I think this is the roadster I was looking for. Zoe, you've been great, but it's time for me to let you get on with your day. You kidding me? This is the most excitement I've seen in maybe ever. Miles moved his hand in front of the vent, spewing cool air. Too much excitement. I'm calling Barma and handing this off to him. Then we're both done with this. The call to Barma went to voicemail. Miles sent a text, called again, and hung up. Watched the parking lot and the sidewalk in the passenger side mirror. So you grow hops, Miles prompted. Primarily research into lost varieties and coming up with new tweaked clones that will do well here. They're incentives from River City and New Pacific. People want their beer, foundation of any civilized culture. If you say so. Not a fan? I don't drink. It makes my face go flush. She laughed, but stopped herself. I can't tell when you're joking. Most people have that problem. Two people emerged from the law office. One was a husky woman in a suit and tie. She was pursuing a younger man. Miles zoomed in. Lucian Carr. He was dressed in a bright blue, untucked button-down shirt, walking fast and purposefully ignoring the woman on his heels. He made it to the roadster before holding out his hand, palm up. The woman, Svetlana Petrov, or one of the associates Miles guessed, reached into a pocket and handed over a set of keys. She wasn't done with whatever imploring protest but got out of the way when Lucian climbed into the roadster. Start the car, Miles said. Zoe turned the key and the electric engine purred to life. Lucian was backing out. He left the attorney in a cloud of chalky dust as he sped off. Zoe followed. Don't get to do this often while watching plants grow. Chapter 7. Lucian drove fast. As Miles hung on and Zoe put the pedal down, they were heading into the heavier traffic of central Seraph. If Lucian was fearful after the night's events, he didn't show it by his driving. He weaved in and out of lanes, cutting off trucks and almost clipping a hapless robot delivery dog. Miles guessed he might be heading home, but Lucian took a northbound lane to leave the downtown area and was soon driving through a commercial district, which Insight marked as being close to Seraph's University. Zoe hung back like a pro, keeping a few cars between them and never trying to match Lucian's speed. There was always enough traffic that she could almost catch up. But then a two-trailer truck got in the way. Zoe had to maneuver into a turn lane. As soon as she sped up, she slammed on the brakes. A light flashed red. A group of pedestrians began crossing. Miles kept quiet, scanning the street for a glimpse of the roadster. Where had it gone? By the time the signal changed and the last half-dozen pedestrians moved unhurriedly out of the crosswalk, Zoe had to wait for the truck to precede them before pulling back onto the street. I'm sorry, she said. I lost him. Relax. You're not supposed to be doing any of this. You need to drop me off up ahead at the corner. I'll continue on foot. It's my job, not yours. Hey! She drove past the corner and kept going. Zoe. It's my car. You want me to find him with or without you? The main drag was a large loop which passed a set of decorative gates. University of Seraph, the scrolling ironwork read. More pedestrians moved about. Students, Miles realized. They endured another long light as a mostly young crowd crossed the road. Miles scanned the faces. This your alma mater? Yep. It's either here or a virtual school, unless you want to travel back to River City or out to New Pacific. They chugged along with the flow of traffic. The university grounds on one side and dorms, auxiliary school buildings, and businesses on the other. Soon, the avenue ahead veered off. It wasn't a complete loop. No roadster in sight. Keep going? Zoe asked. Turn around. I don't think he'd come this way if he was in a hurry. You're a pro on Seraph traffic patterns. Cars are in my DNA. On the return trip, Miles studied the parking lots as they passed. Unlike River City, everything was spread out, with only a few raised or underground parking structures once you got away from downtown. Bad for sprawl, good for his current search. There, a narrow lot with a dozen filled spaces lay sandwiched between an administration building and an eatery. The roadster was nestled by a no parking sign. Zoe waited for a van to leave a spot on the street. This place is good. Fresh bread, soups, beer. No, if you're sticking around, you're waiting out here. Or what? No, or what? This guy might be complicit in a murder and might have had a hand in it. So call the marshal. That's what I'm going to do. I'm also going to walk in there and see if I can spot him. The way he's speeding around, he might be looking to slip away. Zoe made a show of her hands off the wheel before clicking play on her lecture. Miles got out and headed for the eatery. Plants and terracotta pots lined the entry, and a misting fan blew cool water down at an outside sitting area. The air felt balmy. The place was full, both outside and in, for what should have been an early lunch crowd. But the eatery served breakfast, judging by the chalkboard specials list and the plates of egg dishes and baked goods. A young crowd had steaming cups of tea or chicory and spoke through mouthfuls of pancakes and soy sausage. Some read or were working on their tablets. A bar served beer, but only a few were partaking. A muted cricket match played on a large screen near the bar. Miles was the only one wearing a hat. He took it off as he surveyed the restaurant. Herbaceous aromas mixed with the thick smell of cooked meat. Or a near-perfect facsimile. Too many scented soaps and deodorants. Insight began identifying the languages spoken. English, Mandarin, Russian, Hebrew, Finnish, Arabic. Shut up, Insight. A perky server with pigtails and triple studs through the bridge of her nose approached him. There's a spot at the bar, or it's a 15-minute wait. Bar's fine. Minutes later, he was the only one drinking hot tea at the bar, but no one paid him any mind. A pair of kids sharing a tome-sized tablet kept bumping him as they watched an animated video with bouncy music playing so loud that it competed with the buzz of the crowd. They both looked young enough to still be in primary school, but both had half-finished lagers. He endured another bump just as he was about to chance a sip of his steaming beverage. Decided to set it down lest he require more skin grafts. Took in the hairstyles, clothing, makeup, piercings, body language, and group dynamics. Bright colors were in, as were bare shoulders and plunging necklines and long sleeves. The crowd had a sameness to it despite the endless variety, but each group had its loudest dresser. Loudest talker, too, and the competition was ongoing. People flirted, bragged, spoke with their mouths full, and shouted over one another. And, like islands in a fast-moving stream, there were solitary diners, with earphones oblivious to it all, eating or studying alone yet together. Bump. The waitstaff proved efficient in delivering food and drink, and every empty table was quickly filled with more patrons. Miles wondered if school was actually in session. Bump. Miles had surveyed most of the restaurant, except for the patio. A large group occupying a corner booth was partially obscured by a partition. They didn't have any turnover. A girl was reading from a tablet and, unlike the rest of the larger groups, everyone at the table was quiet and listening intently. The back of one head looked like Lucien. Black, short-cropped hair. He wore a charcoal tank top and was lean and muscled. From Miles's angle, it was impossible to confirm it was him. But then he stood, and Miles saw the blue shirt wrapped around his waist. Lucien Carr began reading from the tablet. The table sat intently and listened. Bump. Miles adjusted his stool, edging away, but his neighbors occupied the void in moments. Miles poked the nearest kid whose butt kept nudging him. The young woman looked at him for a moment before doing a double take. "Do you mind?" Miles asked. The girl appeared ready to give a retort, but edged away. The pair resumed their viewing of what turned out to be footage of a video game match. The two were now violating the airspace of a couple of women sharing the same glass of beer and holding hands. "Hey," one woman said after her first bump. Miles knew he couldn't save everyone. He returned his attention to Lucien, texted Barma. After a minute without a reply, Miles got up and approached the table. He realized Lucien was reading lines of dialogue with two of the women at the table. "Let's stop there," said a woman of about 30 wearing a maroon blazer. "That's perfect, Lucien. You get Garcian. We still need to vote on who we'd like to play Estelle." "It's obvious," a girl in a checkered scarf said. "Tilly nailed it." Another of the students raised a finger. "I preferred Sophie. Estelle should be a snatch, you know. After all, she's a murderer." A murmur of agreement followed. Lucien hadn't sat down. "I'd like to hear Sophie as Inez. And with all respect to Tilly, I vote for Lee to play Estelle. She has the voice and bearing." The woman in the maroon blazer licked her lips. "But Lee is first year. She's on stage duty. She can understudy with Tilly." "No, Lee it is. She's perfect. Let's do a read-around with Lee and Sophie. You'll see I'm right." A moment of silence followed. The table appeared to be waiting for the woman in the blazer. "Of course. Let's resume this evening at the theater. Maybe hearing everyone's lines in the auditorium will affect our decision." Miles had taken a position near the partition and an emergency exit. No one had noticed him as the group gathered their belongings. Two of the other students lingered as the others departed, and Lucien settled in again with the tablet and began reading. He didn't look like someone on the run or ready to bolt, and Miles was in no mood to chase someone down. He sent a message to Barma. "Lucien Carr is at Green Moon Cafe. Saw Roadster." Good chance he was at scene last night. Miles waited a moment without receiving a reply. As a space cleared before him, he took the opportunity and slid into the booth. "You're Lucien Carr." Lucien glanced up, but appeared unfazed by Miles' appearance. "I don't know you. This is a private table. Isn't this the theater group?" "We're with Mr. McKenzie's advanced class," one of the two remaining students offered helpfully. "You're no student," Lucien said. Miles showed his hands and shrugged. "Guilty. I do need to talk to Lucien. It's a sensitive matter. You two don't mind, do you?" The two students scooted out of the booth. "See you later, Lucien," one said. Lucien had put his tablet away and pushed his chair back as if to leave. "I wouldn't go just yet," Miles said. "Right now, this is a friendly conversation." "Implying it won't be if I don't cooperate?" The kid was cool. Young man, really, judging by the age, but the tone was that of a much younger teenager. "I'm not implying anything, but I might make things go easier for you. You were there last night, out in the junkyard past Bright Blocks. I don't know what you're talking about. You don't look like a cop. Your car was there. It's only a matter of time before someone finds a trace of something to mark your presence. A fingerprint, a smudge on your clothes, a shoe mark. I served as a police officer with the Meridian military. You bring that lawyer of yours with you, you say what you did and what you saw, it goes better for you." Lucien kept a neutral expression while locking eyes with Miles. "You're here out of the kindness of your heart to get me to turn myself in for some unknown crime? Sounds like you're fishing. It has something to do with your father." Still no reaction. "You don't look like someone who knows my dad, except maybe what you read in the news feed. So take your shakedown and stuff it before I call the militia and tell them you're harassing me." Was this the face of someone who had seen his father gunned down that morning? Lucien got up. When Miles also stood, the young man grasped the necklace with a small button attached. One push, and my security team shows up. Miles made a show of keeping his hands flat on the table. I'm here to help you, believe it or not. But Lucien wasn't sticking around to prolong the conversation. He navigated his way past the waitstaff and headed for the door. Miles followed, checked his device, and confirmed no response from Barma. If the marshal wanted what might be the best witness and suspect to the night's main event, he'd need to show up quick. Outside, a man in overalls was busy with a toolbox near the roadster. He appeared to be digging through it as if searching for the right wrench or screwdriver. But he looked straight at Lucien when he emerged from the eatery doors. Lucien marched towards his car, oblivious. Miles moved to catch up, grabbing one of several stanchions meant to direct customers out of the path of parking cars. But the rope was missing. Lucien turned to face Miles. At the same time, the man in overalls pulled a boxy pistol from the toolbox, raised it. Miles charged. Get down! The pistol went off as Miles shoved past Lucien and swung the stanchion. The heavy base caught the man across the side of the head. He fell, the weapon tumbling. But the man recovered quickly, reaching for the pistol. Miles smashed the stanchion down on his hand. The man screamed and tightened up into a ball. Where was Lucien? At the lot's entrance, Lucien was running, passing between the cars parked outside and across the street. He had his hand on his necklace and was squeezing the alarm. No sound, but the panic button was no doubt calling for help. Miles grabbed the dropped weapon. Not a burner. A dart gun? Get back here, he shouted as he ran. Lucien stopped halfway across the street. A militia cruiser with red markings cut loose, with a whoop from its siren as it flashed its light bar. Lucien changed direction, sprinting now. Traffic swerved to avoid him. A cop on a loudspeaker shouted, "Stop right there!" Miles was on Lucien's heels when Zoe sprang out of her car and got in Lucien's way. They collided. As they went down to the concrete, Lucien was swearing and trying to get her to let go. Miles grabbed Lucien and held him down. It's all right, I got him. One cop was running their way. Miles set the weapon down while keeping his weight on the wriggling young man. Both hands up, the cop ordered. Let me see your hands. He had his pistol out, a compact needle thrower. I'm Miles Kim. I'm with the marshal's office. This is our suspect. The cop's attention was divided between Miles and Zoe, who had gotten up and now stood stiffly with her arms in the air. Down on the ground. His helmet mic blathered. The driver who had been on the loudspeaker was out of the cruiser. Call back up in the wagon. Tell station we have Lucien Carr in custody. Get the... Something struck the cop, and he tumbled. The side window of the militia cruiser shattered. The driver took cover. Miles grabbed Zoe and shoved her down against her car. He kept his head down. The cop had a dart embedded into his back. It had pierced his armor. The other cop began shooting, but at what, Miles couldn't tell. The spat, spat, spat of the needle pistol was a dull cough. Miles opened the door to the vehicle and pushed Zoe inside. Keep your head down. Start the car. He seized Lucien and pulled him up from the ground. Lucien didn't struggle as they scurried around the front of the vehicle and into the passenger side. It was cramped, and Miles accidentally slammed the door on Lucien's foot before getting him completely in. Go, drive. Where? Zoe shouted, her voice cracking. Anywhere but here. He got the car in gear and floored it. Miles winced at the thought someone might shoot at them as he raised his head. No one blocking the road in front of them. And behind was a snarl of vehicles. The militia cruiser was out of sight. Zoe was breathing fast as she swerved through traffic. Miles put a hand on hers. We're okay. Slow down. We don't want to crash. She nodded, but she only drove faster as they hit an open lane. Get off me, Lucien groaned. Miles did his best to adjust himself, but he wasn't taking chances and didn't want to stop so they could get comfortable. What was that? Who's shooting? Zoe asked. I don't know. Militia was after him, but someone else was too, and there was more than one of them. Intersection coming up, which way? Any direction, pick one. But that was panicked thinking. Insight reminded him of where they were, and he had a location in mind, once he forced his brain to calm down. Marshal's office. We're heading to the marshal's office. Take a right up ahead. Zoe took the turn, straining the limits of her compact car. All right, Miles said. You're doing good. We got away. Take it easy. She eased off the accelerator. Hiccuped. Glanced nervously at Miles and the other passenger. Are we still in danger? Not for the moment. I'm getting us someplace safe, and then getting you home. She wiped sweat from her eyes, blinked and focused on the road. That sounds good. Are you hurt? She shook her head. Miles checked himself for any injuries and then patted Lucien down as best he could. No one appeared to be following them. Pull over, Lucien groaned. Let me out. Not a chance. Pipe down. Zoe, stay in this lane. I know where I'm going. She drank from a water bottle. The hiccups continued without let-up. Things like this happen to you often? You just picked a crazy day to say yes to giving me a ride. Is this enough excitement for you? Chapter 8. The unblinking red eye stared down at them. They waited in the marshal's office entry, a short hallway surrounded by one-way glass. The red eye stood above the second door which led inside, and it was attached to a black metal form, which might hold an assortment of defensive measures. Get Barma on the line, Miles said for the third time into the combox mounted on the wall. But Glenda, the woman on the other end of the box, wasn't answering. She had told them to wait, and that had been it. Zoe stood next to him, hugging her elbows and looking pasty. Miles could empathize. Throwing up was perfectly natural after being shot at. He kept one hand on Lucien. The young man kept quiet, his jaw tight, his eyes taking in everything. Miles went to the door and started banging with his metal hand. Stop it, Glenda called from the box. Then let us in. Barma signed me on to help as a temporary deputy. I have a witness for him, and someone's already tried to snatch him once. He glanced back through the door to the street. No one outside. But that could change any moment. He second-guessed his decision to bring Zoe and Lucien to the marshals. Should have cut Zoe loose, but her face and her vehicle had been seen by the militia and whoever else was trying to get Lucien, so she wasn't safe out on the street. Not that standing around in a glass room was much better. Miles prepared to resume pounding when the door clicked and popped open. He shoved Lucien along as Zoe followed. The cool air was a welcome relief from the heat. Glenda wasn't smiling, but Miles had never seen her do anything but glower. The tense, diminutive woman wore a badge pinned to a white button-down shirt and a sidearm clipped to her belt. She conducted them past several desks to a side room with benches, a row of lockers, a kitchen counter with a sink, and a pair of cells with bars. The office was empty besides them. Where is everyone? Miles asked. Out. Glenda held out her hand. I'll take that gun. He handed it over without comment. Stay in here. Bathrooms through that door. Otherwise, don't wander. Miles followed her when she turned to leave. Did I not make myself clear? She asked. Hear anything from Marshal Barma? No, and I don't have any record of you as a new hire, back in the waiting room. So why did you let us in? Because deputizing someone without clearing it with me sounds like something he'd do. Glenda waited. Stared. Miles returned to the waiting room. Lucien was pacing. Zoe was texting, her fingers a flurry, but she appeared to be constantly deleting whatever she had written. You can't keep me a prisoner, Lucien said miserably. I didn't do anything. You haven't told me otherwise. I'm not making any accusations. What happened last night? You almost got me killed back there. I saved your ass. Did you recognize that man? Lucien shook his head. I searched for you on behalf of Marshal Barma. But the guy by your car wasn't trying to bring you in for polite questioning. Stun dart, I'd guess, and he had a friend, or friends, and they were willing to shoot at militia to get to you. And you want me to believe you're on my side? Think what you want. I didn't come at you guns blazing. I believe you were at a meeting last night where things went very badly. One of the victims was your father, and you saw what happened. You visited your lawyer this morning, got your car cleaned up, and then went to meet your theater group like it was a normal school day. Now take off your shoes. What? You heard me. Take them off, or I take them off for you. Miles watched as Lucian sat on a bench and pulled off his loafers. He had flecks of mud on the bottom of his slacks. The loafers weren't clean. All Miles needed was an analysis machine and a sample of the soil and mud near the shipping containers. It would confirm Lucian's presence, as certain as a fingerprint. But before Miles could touch the shoes, voices came from the front of the office. Sheriff Vaca, and she was arguing with Glinda. I don't care, bring him out here, Vaca said. It took Miles a moment to realize she was speaking through the entry lobby call box. He moved from the waiting room into the main office. Vaca was on Glinda's desktop monitor, looking up at the camera. The fisheye lens warped her face and shoulders, turning her into a grotesque monstrosity. I can't do that, Sheriff Vaca, Glinda said. Your authority ends once you step through that door. I didn't write the rules, but I enforce them in this office. Lucian Carr is a witness to a murder, and his life is in danger. So what safer place than here? I've assigned Red District to the investigation. That means your office is no longer lead on this. Lucian is our witness, and I need him. If the marshal was here, he'd agree with me. Well, he isn't, is he, dearie? I have Lucian tagged and logged as one of our witnesses. When Marshal Barmer returns, you can settle this. Glinda's stock was rising in Miles' book. Who else is here that I can speak to? Vaca asked. Everyone else is out. Okay, I get it. You don't make the rules. Then let me in. I need to talk to him. Glinda leaned back from the keyboard. Muted, the screen said. Her eyes narrowed when she saw Miles. I thought I told you to stay put. He pointed to Vaca's image on the screen. You trust her? Bunny, I don't get paid to trust anyone. If she comes in, will you let me stay with Lucian for any interrogation? I wasn't planning on letting her in. I've got the kid's shoes, which need soil trace analysis. You can do that here, can't you? Of course. Let her in. Take the shoes. Run the tests while we talk. She studied him for a moment before unmuting her microphone. Okay, Sheriff, come on in. Check any weapon with me, then you'll get your interview. Chapter 9. Where are his shoes? Sheriff Vaca asked. She stood in the hallway outside of the interview room Glinda had chosen for them. Miles walked Lucian past her, a guiding hand on his arm. Zoe remained in the waiting room. She was on the phone with Dylan. From the snippets of conversation, Miles' son didn't sound happy. I asked you a question. Vaca followed them into the room. It felt like a large closet with plastic chairs and a small table fixed to a wall. He took them, Lucian said as Miles sat him in the far chair. Miles leaned on the wall by the door. Old Meridian trick. No shoes, folks tend to calm down and not try to go anywhere they're not supposed to. That's the stupidest thing I've heard, Vaca said as she sat opposite Lucian. You can go now, Mr. Kim. You must have missed our introduction this morning. Marshal Barma brought me on to consult with this investigation. I don't have your paperwork. You're no marshal. You either take my word for it, or I remind you we're both guests here. Vaca leaned as if searching for Glinda, but she was nowhere to be found. Miles had seen her enter the waiting room and hopefully was taking the shoes to be tested. Lucian's prints would be helpful too, along with the hair sample and skin scrape. Vaca blinked hard, no doubt activating her implants. Lucian Ka? I'm Sheriff Rose Vaca. Do you currently need any medical assistance before we begin this interview? I'm feeling fine, he said. How about I have the temporary deputy marshal bring you a cup of tea? Ask your questions. Your father, Shahid Kar, was murdered last night, along with 2 others. Lucian was staring at the table and tracing a pattern with a finger. His fingernails were buffed and polished. Are you looking for confirmation, Sheriff? I thought that would be the coroner's job. I'm telling you your father's dead, And you're making a joke? No joke. And I already heard about my father. From who? My lawyer. Vaca blinked hard. Svetlana Petrov. Do you know how she heard? Lucian shrugged. Ask her. Miles suppressed a grin. He knew the tough nut act when he saw it. Sometimes meant the witness or suspect had something to hide. Also, could be they had a reason to be so smug. Or they hated cops. Were you close with your father? I'm still processing the news. I'm gutted, Lucian said flatly. How much longer will we be? As long as we need. I understand there was an attempt on your life this morning. I don't know what happened. Miles Kim here saved me. Did you have a relationship with Mr. Kim prior to today? Never seen him before. Maybe you need to ask him some of your hard-hitting questions. I'm talking to you right now. Can you account for your activities last night? The entryway door buzzed. Lucian glanced up, apparently eager to see who might be coming. Miles looked out into the hallway. Marshal Barma marched towards them, Glenda hot on his heels. Sheriff Vaca, his voice boomed. Why are you interviewing a person of interest in my station? Let it be known that Marshal Barma has now joined us, Vaca said to no one. Marshal, I sent you several messages since we last saw each other this morning. You haven't replied to any of them. My device wasn't working. Yet somehow you show up when Lucian Carr gets brought in. I don't care if you believe me or not, Barma said. This is inappropriate. You have the crime scene, but my office is still conducting its investigation. Red District has shared none of its findings yet. You're upset at me for withholding information? Yes, I decide who investigates what, and you've brought in outside help on a very sensitive event. I'm questioning your professionalism. Miles Kim is a deputized consultant, and none of your concern. Miles smiled and waved 2 fingers at the sheriff. She said, I'm directing you to release Lucian to my custody and for your consultant to deliver all images and files associated with last night's event. You'll need an order from the mayor. A grin split her face. A hard blink, and Barma's phone pinged. He checked his device and his jaw clenched. Looks like your phone is working again, the sheriff said. Everything in order? Barma was reading and scrolling. Good, she said. Lucian is coming with me. Mr. Kim, please find me his shoes. The front door buzzed again. By the saints, now what? Glenda said. A brief exchange on the intercom was followed by the loud footsteps of shoes with heels. Svetlana Petrov appeared with 2 men in dark suits at her side. She wore dark glasses and a different suit than before, this one teal with a black houndstooth pattern. Weapons? Glenda asked. Svetlana touched her sunglasses and the lenses went clear. None of my associates brought sidearms into the marshal's office. Marshal Barma? Sheriff Vaca? Unless you're placing my client under arrest, I'm ending this interview. He just lost his father, and now you're holding him here and asking him questions without me present? He didn't request his lawyer, Vaca said. Svetlana gave her an "Are you serious?" look before slipping past everyone. I'll expect a formal request for my client's presence to come to me first. Come on, Lucian. We're going. Took you long enough, Lucian grumbled. Wait, Miles said. He had people come after him by the school. People? Svetlana asked. What people? I don't know. Man in overalls, another shooter. An attempted abduction, I'm guessing. Then, I'll be sure to double his protection detail. If you want to schedule an interview with him, call my office. Lucian, where are your shoes? Svetlana, along with the 2 bodyguards, escorted Lucian out of the station. Sheriff Vaca lingered for a moment, sending a few messages before likewise departing. Glenda went to her desk, leaving Barma and Miles standing in the hallway. Zoe waited in the doorway to the waiting room. Miles motioned for her to stay put. What just happened? Miles asked. Barma slipped his device into his pocket and dabbed his sweaty brow with a handkerchief. Delayed it for as long as possible. But the sheriff has the case, and she can delegate it to whomever she pleases. Mayor's approval, so I have no choice. That stunt with your phone never worked in my day. It still doesn't today. She'll make me pay for that. So, what did you learn? Less than I hoped. Talk to your girlfriend, Captain Sin. Yellow Tigers are just learning about what happened to Bing Patton. They're having an emergency board of directors meeting right now. Sin talked to his secretary, his ex-wife, and all her officers. No one knew he had anything planned last night. And Xander Trowbridge gave his bodyguard the evening off. Seems Shahid's the only one who brought a +1 to the party. Kid say anything? The kid went to his lawyer this morning. His car got cleaned, but I didn't have time to check it myself. Glinda had a few minutes with his shoes. Might get something there. But Lucian Carr spent the rest of his day with his drama group at the university and barely seems to register his father got gunned down. And then, after we got attacked, he shrugged it off like nothing had happened. He's a cool fish. Shock'll do that. So will a guilty conscience. But I don't know if he was an active participant in the junkyard shooting. He's no saint. But if he was there, he kept his hands clean. Literally. Barma grumbled. Unless he got himself tidied up, head to toe. I'll check on the samples from the shoes. But you heard the sheriff. This office is done. Are you? Used to be 2 departments here who shared enforcement duties and police work. Marshals and sheriff. Then the city fathers hired out instead of expanding what we had. Enter the militias. Couple of small companies at first just for traffic and routine law and order duty. Then some of those started merging into what we have now. Red Banners and Yellow Tigers, Miles said. Yeah, there are a couple of smaller outfits who specialize in certain things, but they only pick up the scraps and have no actual power. But you were there last night. Something like this gets covered up, it blows up in everyone's faces. I hate cleaning up a mess, but I can't pretend my phone's out again. At least not this week. You want me to keep working the case. Learning why those 3 men died in there might not be important to the sheriff, but it is to me. There's interested parties who are no doubt happy they're gone, but there are others who will want Lucian Carr for what they believe he saw or knows, and the sheriff's willing to let him dangle in the breeze. What about Lucian's attorney? Svetlana Petrov? Don't know her, except she's high-end and worked for the family. Don't need to do much else if Shahid Carr's your client. I've got some people to talk to then. Bonus, if I can find who's after Lucian. Barma nodded. All right, if you need anything, call. Keep a low profile. You know me. My profile is my strongest suit. Chapter 10. You got Zoe involved in a shootout, Dylan shouted. Miles held his device away from his ear. It was an accident. I didn't think what we were doing was dangerous. Neither excuse would hold water, and any apology would sound lame. She's okay. She's safe and heading to work. Marshal Barma sent one of his deputies with her to make sure she makes it there. Glinda had been uprooted from her desk with no small amount of grumbling, but once she was committed to stepping out into the heat of the day, she had donned a flak vest and helmet, both which looked 2 sizes too big, and had departed the station with Zoe. Dylan said, That doesn't make me feel any better. Are you expecting more trouble? No. She sent me a message that she made it without incident. Miles added. She texted you? I haven't heard back from her in over 30 minutes. Maybe because you were yelling when you talked to her when she was here. Miles instantly regretted the words. Of course I was yelling. I got upset, and not with her, with you. Dad, you asked for a ride downtown, not for her to serve as an escort following the son of a ruthless criminal. You got her shot at and then had her driving at high speeds through Seraph like she was in an action serial. She told you she was driving fast? I asked after I saw the car data service warnings. She earned us 7 traffic citations. You're spying on her? We rent that car. It's expensive, and we both pay the bill. Don't make this about me. Miles took a breath, reminded himself of something Zillion could never drill into his head. At least if they were arguing, they were communicating. It was always better than silence if they could remain calm. Dylan, I'm sorry. Zoe offered to drive. I should have said no. I didn't think what happened would happen. I was trying to find a witness to a crime. I was going to hand it off to the marshal. Then, when I saw the witness get attacked, I stepped in. Zoe wasn't there, but she was waiting in her car. His son's voice remained strained. You're leaving out the part that this person of interest might have been involved in a murder. She texted me while she was waiting for you. It's true. 3 people died last night, and the marshal needs my help. Is that why you wanted to come to Seraph to join the marshal service? I thought you were retired. I am. I didn't come here for this. I came because you're here. Silence. Then, Dad, I have to go. The connection ended. Miles stared at his device for a moment, almost called back, but put it away. Zoe's text, informing her she was at work, waited for him. He replied, I'm sorry about today. Are you all right? Interesting morning, Zoe texted back. I'm fine. Talked to Dylan. He's angry with me and I apologize for that. He was upset that I got cited for bad driving. Sounded more disturbed about the car. He took a moment of writing and rewriting his response. No, he's worried about you. Give him a break. I'm sorry I got you involved. Don't be sorry. Today was exciting. You working with people around you? Plenty of people here at this hour. Should I be concerned? No, I'm just being paranoid. But I want you to be safe. Have a good day at work. He put the device away and caught his breath. Dylan was angry with him again, and Miles hated the sensation of his stomach twisting into knots. He'd have to talk to Dylan later. But for now, his son needed a cooling down period, and he could only hope Dylan and Zoe wouldn't get into a fight over this. But Lucien Carr was in the wind. As the only current witness, he needed to be protected, and Miles needed to learn what he had seen. The direct approach hadn't worked, even if it had been fortuitous in preventing Lucien's kidnapping. Barma emerged from a room down the hall and sent a document to Miles's device. Soil report from the shoes. Miles read through the report. Silicon, calcium, oxygen, aluminum, magnesium, potassium. The list went on, labeling each by percentages. Inside tried its best to sort the data, but he stopped it. It's a match for the junkyard ground right outside the crime scene, Barma said. So he was there. Why don't you sound happy? I took a sample of my own shoe for comparison. Inside of the container was rusty. Miles scrolled to the bottom of the report. You tracked more rust, and Lucien's shoes didn't have much. Rust might have come from the other side of the container where you parked. Might be a patch of rusty ground where he didn't walk. Yeah. But without doing a thorough check of the ground and footprints, this is what I have for now. I don't think Lucien set foot in the container. So he didn't even see what happened. Whoever's after him probably doesn't know that. Can we tell Sheriff Vaca about the soil data? Barma dropped his gaze. She hasn't changed her mind about this. I checked. We're out. I tried to call the Red District commander to see if we can share notes, but he just deferred to Vaca. What about the other interested parties? Xander Trowbridge's people, the Yellow Tigers. I've put inquiries out to find out who knows what. I'd say Vaca can't just cover over the murders, but anything's possible at this point. You could go ask questions. I detect a but coming, Miles said. Yeah, ask your questions. Gently. And you'd better leave my name out of it. As much as Lucien Carr is a dweeb, he's a priority if he's in danger. He has his bodyguards, Barma said. But I agree. His bodyguards might not expect a genuine threat. You saw who was after him. What do you want to do? Find him. And to do that, I think I need to talk to his lawyer. Can I borrow your car?